It's December 1932, and Germany is dying. The economy has collapsed not once but twice in a single decade. 10 million men are looking for work. Factories stand empty. Families are selling their furniture on the streets to buy bread. The government has no money. The treasury is empty. The banks are failing. Then, in January 1933, Adolf Hitler takes power and makes a promise that seems impossible. He will rebuild Germany's military. He will create jobs for millions. He will make Germany great again. But there's one problem. Germany is bankrupt. Completely, utterly bankrupt. The Versailles Treaty forbids Germany from having an army of more than 100,000 men. No tanks, no warships, no military aircraft, no submarines. And Germany has no money to build them anyway. The country is drowning in debt. Foreign creditors are calling in their loans. The currency is unstable. By every measure, Germany should be getting smaller, weaker, poorer. Instead, in just 6 years, Germany will build the largest military machine Europe has ever seen. By 1939, Hitler commands 3 million soldiers, thousands of tanks rolling off assembly lines, hundreds of thousands of weapons, the most advanced air force in the world, the Luftwaffe with thousands of modern fighter planes. How did a bankrupt nation, crippled by war reparations, strangled by international debt, somehow transform into a military superpower? The answer isn't what you'd expect. It's not about economic growth. Germany's economy was still struggling. It's not about foreign investment. Nobody was lending Germany money for rearmament. The answer involves something far more ingenious and far more sinister. It involves the systematic exploitation of slave labor, the complete reorganization of society around war production, the theft of resources from conquered nations, and a willingness to break every international agreement ever made. But most importantly, it involves a radical restructuring of how a nation produces weapons. This is the story of how Hitler turned a bankrupt nation into a military superpower by fundamentally changing what military power means. When Hitler came to power, he appointed a man named Hjalmar Schacht to control Germany's finances. Schacht was a financial genius. He had already saved Germany once in 1923, stopping the hyperinflation by creating a new currency. Now he faced an impossible task: rearm Germany massively, secretly, without triggering inflation, without revealing the true scale of what was happening, and without actually spending money Germany didn't have. The solution was revolutionary. Instead of building a military through normal economic channels, Germany would build it through complete reorganization of its entire society. Schacht understood something fundamental. A military isn't built by spending money. A military is built by converting resources, labor, and industrial capacity into weapons. If you control the allocation of all resources, if you control all labor, if you dictate what every factory produces, you can build a military without needing money at all. The process began with something called the 4-year plan. Hitler's economic planners realized that Germany couldn't build a military by competing in normal markets. Armaments were expensive. Materials were scarce. The solution was simple: make the entire economy serve the military. No more consumer goods, no more investment in civilian industry. Every factory, every worker, every raw material would be directed to military production. The German government simply seized control of resource allocation. They decided what would be produced, where it would be produced, and who would produce it. This wasn't capitalism. This wasn't socialism in the traditional sense. It was total mobilization. The entire economy became an extension of the war machine. But there was still the problem of labor. To build 3 million soldiers, manufacture tanks, produce aircraft, mine coal, forge steel, you need workers, millions of them. Germany's population was only 65 million. Conscription for the military was taking millions of men away from factories. Where would the workers come from? The answer was brutal. Jewish citizens were expelled from their jobs and their properties seized by the state. Polish workers were forcibly brought to Germany and enslaved. Soviet prisoners of war were worked to death in factories and mines. Concentration camp prisoners were assigned to labor battalions. By the time the war reached its peak, Germany was using over 7 million foreign workers, many of them slaves. IG Farben, Siemens, Krupp, and hundreds of other German companies benefited from this slave labor. These were some of Germany's largest corporations, and they grew rich while prisoners died building weapons. The economics of slavery are simple. Slave labor produces no wages. It produces no purchasing power. It produces weapons. Lots and lots of weapons. When you have an unlimited supply of free labor, you can produce weapons at a rate no normal economy can match. This is how Germany solved the labor problem, not through economic growth, but through enslavement. Next came raw materials. Germany needed iron ore, copper, aluminum, oil, rubber. The problem was that Germany didn't have enough of these materials. Sweden had iron ore. Romania had oil. These were neutral nations. Germany couldn't simply seize them. Instead, the Nazi government used trade agreements and threats to secure supplies. When that wasn't enough, they simply invaded. Austria was annexed in 1938, giving Germany Austrian resources and strategic position. Czechoslovakia was occupied, and the Skoda weapons factories, among the most advanced in Europe, fell into German hands. The plundering of conquered territories became systematic. When Germany invaded France in 1940, it didn't just occupy the country. It extracted 400 million francs per day as occupation costs. France was paying for its own conquest. The conquered territories of Eastern Europe were looted systematically. Gold reserves were seized, art was stolen, industrial equipment was dismantled and shipped to Germany. Most importantly, food was confiscated. German soldiers ate well, while millions of Soviet citizens starved. This wasn't a side effect of war. It was systematic policy. The Wehrmacht was fed by stealing grain from Ukraine. The German war machine was fueled by oil stolen from Romania. Copper came from looted resources. Aluminum came from seized industrial plants. Then there was the reorganization of German industry itself. Before Hitler, Germany had hundreds of private manufacturers competing with each other. This changed. The government didn't nationalize industry, but it didn't have to. The government controlled all contracts, all raw materials, all labor. If you were a factory owner, you had one choice: produce weapons at government-dictated prices or lose everything. Most chose production. German factories were reorganized around standardization and mass production. Workers weren't trained to think. They were trained to follow instructions. The government directed resources to the most efficient producers. Wasteful facilities were shut down. Promising ones were expanded. By 1939, Germany had created something unprecedented: a centrally directed war economy operating through private corporations. The profit motive still existed, but it was subordinated to military domestic. Factory owners made money, but only if they produced weapons. This created a system of astonishing industrial efficiency. German weapons production was coordinated across thousands of factories. Tank engines came from one facility, transmissions from another, armor plating from a third. These parts would be shipped to assembly plants, where thousands of workers labored in carefully choreographed sequences to assemble finished tanks. The same system worked for aircraft, for submarines, for artillery. German industry didn't invent mass production. American industry had pioneered that. But German industry applied mass production to weapons in a way no nation had done before. Innovation played a crucial role as well. Germany invested heavily in weapons development. The Wehrmacht was supplied with tanks that were superior to anything the British or French had in 1940. German aircraft were state-of-the-art. Submarines were lethal. This didn't happen by accident. It happened because the Nazi government forced brilliant engineers and scientists to work on military projects, forced them through either patriotism, fear, or profit. Research institutions like the Kaiser Wilhelm Society received massive funding for military research. Universities were directed to focus on weapons-related physics and engineering. The brightest young Germans weren't going into finance or business. They were going into weapons development. The result was a technological edge that would take the Allies years to overcome. German tanks, like the Tiger and Panther, were genuinely superior to British and American tanks in the early war years. German submarines nearly strangled British shipping. German aircraft, like the Me-109, were competitive with the best British fighters. This technological advantage was created by systematically directing the best scientific talent in Germany toward military problems. The speed of German rearmament was staggering. In 1933, Germany had fewer than 900 military aircraft. By 1939, the Luftwaffe had over 4,000. Tank production went from zero in 1933 to thousands by 1939. Artillery production increased 20-fold. This wasn't because the German economy was growing. It was because the entire German economy had been converted into a weapons factory. Nothing else mattered. Consumer goods disappeared. New cars weren't manufactured for civilians during the entire Nazi period. Housing construction stopped. Roads and railroads that weren't militarily useful weren't built. Every resource, every worker, every factory, every ton of material went to military production. This is the brutal efficiency of total mobilization. When you remove all civilian spending, when you eliminate all consumer choice, when you stop producing anything except weapons, you can produce weapons at an astonishing rate. The price is that the population has nothing. No new houses, no new cars, no consumer goods. Life gets harder as the military gets stronger. But if you control the government, if you can suppress dissent through terror, if you can make people believe that sacrifice is necessary and noble, then you can maintain this system indefinitely. But there was still the money problem. How do you actually pay for this? How do you pay the soldiers? How do you pay the slave laborers? How do you buy materials from other nations? The answer was creative accounting. The German government issued promissory notes. It borrowed from its own central bank. It defaulted on international debts. It seized Jewish assets and used that money to fund military production. A businessman who was Jewish had his factory confiscated. That factory would then receive a military contract and would become fantastically profitable. But the owner was imprisoned or killed. The assets of Jews, political prisoners, and other victims of the regime became a massive source of funding. The Volkswagen company collected over 270 million marks from German savers who were promised cars they would never receive. The factory was converted to military production instead. German savers lost their money. They didn't get compensated until the 1960s, after the war had destroyed the nation. Every aspect of German society was mined for resources to fund the military. Life insurance policies were seized, art collections were stolen, pensions were frozen. The elderly, who had saved their entire lives, had their savings confiscated. All of this was hidden from view through propaganda and control of information. Most Germans didn't understand how their nation had been reorganized. They saw jobs returning. They saw confidence returning. They believed that Hitler was bringing back prosperity. In reality, he was building a military machine by stripping the nation bare. So how did Hitler build a huge army when Germany was bankrupt? He did it by completely reorganizing society around military production. He seized control of all economic activity. He implemented total mobilization of labor, resources, and industry. He enslaved millions of people and worked them to death building weapons. He stole from his own citizens and from conquered peoples. He built the most efficient weapons production system the world had ever seen by removing all civilian constraints and directing all resources to military production. He invested in technological innovation and created weapons that were genuinely advanced. He broke every international agreement that restricted German rearmament. He restructured the entire German economy to serve one purpose: building weapons. And he did it all while the Western democracies watched and negotiated, believing that economic logic would eventually restrain German ambitions. The Western democracies believed that Germany couldn't afford this rearmament. They were looking at conventional economic metrics. They thought in terms of normal budgets and normal spending. What they didn't understand was that Hitler had broken with normal economics entirely. He wasn't operating within the constraints of a normal economy. He had created a command economy directed entirely toward military production. By the time the Western democracies understood what was happening, Germany had already built the largest military machine in Europe. The rearmament was complete. The war was inevitable. The army had been built not through economic strength, but through the total mobilization of an entire nation, the enslavement of millions, the theft of resources, and the complete subordination of all civilian needs to military production. This is how a bankrupt nation became a military superpower, not through prosperity, but through organized brutality, not through growth, but through plunder, not through markets, but through command. The German military wasn't built by capitalism or socialism. It was built by total war mobilization. And the price of that mobilization wasn't paid by Hitler or the Nazi elite. It was paid by millions of workers, prisoners, enslaved peoples, and eventually by the entire German population, when the military that had been so frantically built turned the nation into a wasteland.